Hey everybody, this is Nils. Hope you're joining me. Hope my video is showing up. I'm not quite sure yet if it is. Still working on, there's a new interface on YouTube, and so I'm going to be checking to, I'm going to be checking to see if it's actually working or not. So give me a little bit of a moment here. I'm Nils Davis. I'm the author of the Secret Product Manager Handbook and the host of our video today. So actually, I'm the host of the video every time. That's not that new, to be honest. And so let's see if something is happening here in terms of the live stream. I do not think it is. There is no live stream. So why is that? They changed my interface to how I set up the live stream without telling me. And that is tricky. That's going to be tricky for me to figure out. And as I try to make this happen, there used to be a thing called what is it called? The broadcaster's dashboard or something? I can't remember what it was called. I've already forgotten. And it's where you set up your channel and you set up your videos, and in particular you set up your live stuff. And right now it is not really allowing me to set up my live stuff, and so that is a little annoying, and trying to figure out what button I have forgotten to push that is going to let me, oh, here we go. Let me just do this, go live. See if that works. See if it has the same stream key. Doesn't look like it. Let's see. No, I don't want that to happen. I want to do this way. And where is my encoder? There we go. Now, let's see. I'll do this one. Almost ready. I think I have almost figured out how to do it. In fact, there I am. How about that? Okay, I am actually live streaming now. I don't know how much you've heard, but it's all set up now, so that's pretty awesome. And so let me talk about what I'm going to talk about today. So hello everybody, welcome to the channel. This is Nils Davis. I'm the author of the Secret Product Manager Handbook, and the topic today is about finding market problems. And so I wrote a blog post about this, and it's really in response to a question that somebody asked me a few months ago, which was how the question was, how do you actually get out of the building? So this is a person who was a product manager. She'd been a product manager not too long, but she knew that she needed to get out of the building more. She knew that she had that need to go out and market to customers, but she felt that that advice in particular, get out of the building, was not too actionable. So I thought I'd do a little research and based on some of my own experience, talk about how we can think about the idea of getting out of the building. So that is what I'm going to try to do a little bit of a presentation on. And there's just some ideas, and as I said, I've got a blog post, but I also put together a little bit of a PowerPoint on the topic. So hopefully this will be somewhat useful. And I'm actually going to cover a little bit more in the PowerPoint than in the post, and I'll be adding to another post. Anyway, you don't care. If you're watching on the video, you probably didn't read the blog. And if you read the blog, well, maybe you also watch the video. I don't know. I also have to check on one other thing while I'm here. So I'm going to ask. So I have a friend who's watching, and I just texted her to make sure, see if she can actually see me live, because it's one of those things where it's sometimes hard to know, if things are working. And so I'm still somewhat new to this whole game here, but anyway, that's that. So let's see, where's my PowerPoint now? There it is. Put that there. Got all kinds of little, there we go. Okay, so the basic idea, finding market problems. And the bottom line is, what do you really need to do in order to really take action on this phrase of get out of the building, right? We know we need to do market discovery. We know we need to get out there, and we know we need to, find out what the real problems are out there. But the real question is, what are the real steps to doing this? What are the actual steps that you have to take to go out and do this finding market problems concept, right? And as I said, get out of the buildings too high level. So the first bit of advice I gave her really was, don't freak out. This is a thing that a lot of people have solved. Some people are really good at it, at all the parts. Well, I think actually I should correct that. I think there's a lot of parts to this, to doing good market discovery. And I think everybody probably has some challenges in one area or another. And in fact, I definitely do have some challenges in some of the areas. So let me just quickly tell you about my particular challenge. I'm really good on the phone with customers. I'm really good at eliciting their problems. I'm also even good. One of my superpowers is really telling people that we're not going to do their enhancement request and having them agree that that's a good conclusion to come to. But I'm really terrible at setting up that initial appointment. It's a little bit like the way, to be honest, so you can harken back to how I set up these live videos. I really haven't marketed them very well because I'm kind of like, it's not rational at all. Like a lot of these challenges that people have on day-to-day types of things, it's not challenging. So I'll tell you in the end about how I address this problem of setting up the appointments. And there's, of course, different things you can do. There's like, I'll tell you one thing I did, and I'll tell you about the superpower thing I did that at the moment, unfortunately, my superpower faded in that particular instance. But one thing I did was I set up a Calendly account. So I can send people to a website link that knows about my calendar, and people can choose their own time to meet with me based on what my calendar is and what their calendar is. It's very powerful to have this capability. It doesn't eliminate the problem completely because I still have to send those people an email and ask them to contact me. But the point is that there are tools you can use, and I'll tell you, as I say, I'll tell you about another one that I used, which I think was the most important one. So I really recommend also that you don't just listen to me on how to address market problem or find market problems and get out there and do market discovery, but you should also talk to or read Theresa Tori's stuff. She is a really fantastic product management writer and thinker. Her real focus is on market discovery and continuous discovery and getting out there and essentially finding out what the market wants. And she's really good at it. So some of this that I'm going to present is based on her stuff because she's so good. But, we all have to know how to do it, and we all have our own challenges with the different parts. But I recommend looking at her stuff. And there are some, I'll put some links in the show notes or in the notes below the video about how to find Theresa Tori's stuff. So she has this great story in one of her articles about, she was working with a car company and she just had her people and their product managers go to a local mall and start asking people about how they felt about cars. They were trying to find out some particular things, and so the questions were about some particular aspect of cars. But it's just like such an amazing thing to think that how easy it is to go out, and sometimes it's really easy to just go out there and get the information that you need. Of course, sometimes for some of us, it's not quite as easy because, for example, maybe we don't have such a consumer-oriented product. It's a little harder if you have enterprise users who live in enterprises and you have to touch them. But I'll give you some advice on that as well. And I'm sure, again, Theresa Tori can give you advice about that as well. Some of her clients are definitely enterprise software companies. So what are the challenges? Well, there's a lot of different things you have to do in order to set up these customer discovery meetings. And I don't even know if you can read everything on the slide. So I'll just switch to the slide for the moment. But, there's all these moving parts, right? There's and for some reason I do not have a background on my image, and that's okay. Well, there's lots of moving parts. There's, you have to do things like finding people. You have to schedule people. That's the thing that was really difficult for me. You have to get prepared. What questions are you going to see? Just a little note that I have to send to somebody who gave me a comment. My main page. And so you have to prepare yourself. Like, what questions are you going to ask? What are you trying to discover? What do you know about these people already that you can make use of as you, talk to them? It's always good to have some kind of built-in or previously known information that you can use to create some engagement with the person before, if you know something about them, you can start out talking like that, or you can use some of the things that you know about them as examples when you're asking questions and things like that. Then, of course, you've got to capture those interviews. Well, you've got to do the interviews. You've got to capture them. And then you need to do analysis on what you learned or what you heard to find out what you learned. And oftentimes, as I've talked a lot about in previous videos and in articles, there's typically not going to be, somebody's not just going to say, oh, here's a problem I have, and if you solve this problem, you're going to make millions of dollars. It's typically, there are a few, what am I trying to say? There's a weak signal. You don't get the full message from this one interview. That's basically what I'm talking about. You have to talk to a lot of different people, and you start to triangulate on things that you can solve based on talking to lots of folks. And that's what you're going to find as you do these interviews. You have to start searching for these weak signals. And then, of course, let's assume you found some weak signals that indicate market problems that could be solved by you. Then you have to prioritize those and take action. And if you find a really good one, you then have to get somebody to fund the development of that. So there's all these different steps. And of course, they all take sort of different kinds of skills and different things like that. So I just wanted to share that whole complicated set of things. So let me pause for 1 minute. I'm going to actually try to get my friend back on the she is trying to access my thing, and I think I gave her the wrong link. I'm trying to direct her back to the home page of the channel, and I think she might be able to see me live there if that happens. Okay, so she's going to try again. Okay, anyway, so one of the things that is really challenging about these conversations, and this is not related to setting up the appointment, but just something to keep in mind as you do this type of discovery, is that, and I think this is something that makes it seem really challenging because, one of the things, at least for me, I fear when I'm going to go out and talk to customers that that I'm just going to hear a lot of bad stuff about my product because, and partly this is the curse of knowledge. Well, there's two things I think I'm going to do. One is I'm going to see the, one of the challenges is that I'm going to hear about all the bad things that I already know. The other is that I'm only going to hear about improvements that I already know about as well, right? Because I think I know everything. And the problem really is that, in fact, I don't really know everything. And so that's something I have to remember when I go out there. Let me find my my link here for my friend. And I do not know how to do this. Do this. Open and let's see. Oh, that's what I wanted. Go here. No, that's not what I wanted. Go here. I'm still trying to get my person to be able to link to see me on my screen. That's very embarrassing. But let's see, go there. So there's some things that I have not yet figured out. Okay, there we go. She's here. Yay, she figured it out herself. Fantastic. Okay, so let me put that there. That's there. And let me go over here, back to my thing. Okay, good. Yay. Okay, so as I was saying, we have this curse of knowledge. It's basically, we think we know the things that are wrong, and we care a lot about those things. We think we know the things that are missing, and of course we care a lot about those things. But the fact is that the reason you're going out and talking to your customers is that your customer doesn't really care about the things that you know. They don't really care about your product, except in so far as your product will help them solve their problems, right? The thing that they're working on, they want to have something that will fix the thing that they're working on, that'll make the thing that they want to do better. And you probably, as the person with the curse of knowledge about your own product, you probably don't have a good sense of what that is that those people need. And that's why you have to go out and talk to them, because you're interpreting everything that happens in your product in the context of your own product. And this is true even if you actually are an expert in the domain of your users. So, for example, I'm a product manager. I was the product manager for a product for product managers. And you would think that I would be an expert in the domain. But the fact is that every single time that I talk to a customer or a non-customer about product management and what they wanted in tooling, they all gave me insights that I didn't have before. And that's just the way that's just what happens constantly when you go out and do this customer discovery stuff. It's fascinating, but it's really because we think that we know everything. And the fact is that we don't know as much as we think we do, right? So that's where the gaps are. So what next? So how do you actually get started on this? Well, first of all, make a list of the people that you want to talk to. And how do you figure out that list of people? Well, it could be some categories of folks. It may be specific people that you have in mind. People that you know is often a good thing to talk to, a good place to find people. And that, of course, could be your customers already. But it also could be other people that you are linked to, for example, on LinkedIn, or people that you know or have connections to. And in fact, here's a list that is based on Theresa Tori's article. There's a link there, but I will give you a link again in the show notes. But so things like your connections, your LinkedIn connections, or your friends, depending on the type of product that you're trying to sell, your existing customers, prospects that you lost perhaps, they're often really good to learn about what you might be not thinking about in your product, or why a competitor's product might seem more appealing. And you don't always know that from the outside. It's really good to get insights from your clients or from lost prospects. You can use services to actually find people for you. This is an example. This is an idea from Theresa that I hadn't thought of before, but of course there's companies out there that will find people for you to interview. Of course, you have to pay for that, but sometimes that's worth it, because these problems that you're going to find are going to create money for your business. You can also recruit people from within your application. There's ways to put in little plugins that might pop up at certain times that let you ask a user, can we schedule a call to ask you more about how you're using this feature, or something like this. Or maybe if they cancel something, or maybe if they abandon a cart, all these different things. There's lots of different ways that you can add those. Now, there's a lot of stupid ways. I get a lot of those pop-ups that said, we'd love to have you do a little survey on our website. Are you willing? And I almost never am willing, because usually they come up right when I get to the website, which is dumb. I don't even know how I feel about it. And I'm just trying to get something done. So it's better to do that a little bit more a little smarter. You can also, if you make friends with with folks in customer support and sales and things, you can ask them to, when certain things happen with a customer or a client, that they let you know and let you set up a call with that client. When this happens, when some particular thing happens, let me know, and I want to have a talk with that. You can also go to where people are. And so things like meetups and conferences and malls, as in the case of the Theresa Tori story. You do want to become friends with people that are talking to more customers than you typically are, and that's people like sales and customer support or customer success, and as I mentioned, and also services. Now, they're typically always talking to more customers than you probably manage to on a day-to-day basis. And what you want to encourage them to do, and I've been preaching this a little bit to some folks in customer support and customer success. I want them to ask me to join them when they're having calls with customers. Now, just because of the nature of things, I'm not going to be able to say yes all the time. And I've warned them that. But I tell them basically, anytime you're talking to a customer, particularly if it's sort of some interesting situation, please let me know, and I would love to join you if I can. And this is a way to hear stuff directly from the horse's mouth. And I always also mention to them that I can either be a fly on the wall, not participate in the conversation, or if they want, and this can be valuable for them, I can, talk to them, or ask questions of the client as well. So that is something that often can be valuable. So if I get a chance to do that, that's something I really like. So get to know your salespeople and your customer support folks and things like that. So what else? So how did I actually accelerate my customer visits? It was a very important superhero moment for me, which was that I found a collaborator who was really good at making appointments. She was literally, I would say literally 100 times better. And when I say the word literally, I mean that in actual fact, she was 100 times better at this than I was. She could make these appointments happen with so little friction compared to what it took me to make it happen, that it was unbelievable. I would say to her, I would really like to talk to this particular customer for this reason. And she would, within a few minutes, often have an appointment set up, something that would be very difficult for me to do. And again, this isn't rational. I have the skills to do this. I should be able to do it. And yet, for some reason, I can't. And she was really good at it. Now, she was also somebody, luckily, who was a great person to have on the calls with me. She was another person on the product team, and she had much more of a user experience orientation, where I'm much more about process and things like that. And so she was really valuable to have on the team. We were great collaborators, but this was something that was just so great that she could do so much better than me. And I really recommend, in general, to get a collaborator who can augment the things that you're not good at, if at all possible. And even if they can't necessarily augment the things you're not good at, it may be that together as a team you can do it better anyway. And so it's always great to have a collaborator for all of these kinds of situations, particularly if you have particular weaknesses like I do. So let's talk about how to have these meetings physically. So we talk about get out of the building, and there's that well-known phrase from pragmatic marketing: nothing important happens in the office. Nihito it's often shortcutted. But the fact is that, for many of us, our customers aren't near enough to us so we can go visit them on a regular basis. So that's an ideal thing to do often, or it's really great to go and visit customers in person and in their workspace to see how they work. It's actually pretty difficult to set those meetings up, but you are likely to be spending a lot of time on the phone or in a webinar or in an online call of some kind, right? Where you can maybe see their screen, or you can talk to them face to face, whatever it might be. You can, of course, have them come to you, particularly if you have a user experience lab where you can do some testing, or maybe you can set up a remote user experience lab and go someplace where there's a lot of customers and have them come to you there. So those are some of the things you can do, but it's not really, you don't really have to get out of the office to get a lot of benefit. It's good in some ways, but it's really true that sort of without certain other aspects of that thing, you're not going to learn everything you'd like to know from being at the customers. I mean, really the big thing about being at the customers is if you can see them work, particularly if you can see them work without them sort of noticing, meaning you have to be there a long enough time that they get used to you being around and they just act normally. That you can learn a lot of really valuable information in that situation, but it's often difficult to get that situation set up, as you can imagine. So that's what you do physically. But then the next step, and I said there's a lot of steps, and I'm just really now on step 2, or step 3, I guess. I call it step 2 here because I sort of put together finding the people to talk to and setting up the appointments to talk to them as sort of one step. But step 2 is then what are you going to talk to these people about? What are you going to ask them? And so there's a whole set of things you want to think about at this point, right? So you're out there talking to customers because you have some hypothesis about the market, typically. And your hypothesis may be as broad as, well, we have a product that does something in project management, for example. So I want to talk to these people about how they think of project management, or what their challenges with project management are, right? So it may just be, I want to learn more about things I can solve, problems I can solve related to project management, since that's what I already do, right? So that could be your hypothesis. You may have a more detailed hypothesis. I want to learn if closing out projects at the end of the project is a big problem or challenge for my customers or for the market, or if it's not a big challenge, if it's something that they think would be valuable to do more automation around or not. And so then you have to then start working out what your line of questioning is going to be. And the goals here are the most important thing to avoid when you're doing these interviews with customers where you're trying to find new market problems is to avoid leading the customer. In other words, you don't want to put an idea into their head. You want the ideas to all come from them. And so you have to ask open-ended and non-leading questions. And what does that mean? Well, typically, you can ask about the problem space, or you can ask about the domain, but you want to keep the question in a problem space. So what are the problems in this domain? So, for example, if I were going and talking to project managers, I would not say, hey, what are your biggest issues in the world right now? I would say, hey, what are your biggest issues with managing your projects right now? Or I might even say, if I felt like there was a likelihood that there was some problems in closing out projects, I might say, I might do something like this. How important are the challenges of closing out projects related to some of the other things you do in project management? Now, I would be hoping for an answer where they said, oh, that's the thing I really struggle with. The tools aren't supporting me very well. And then I would ask further questions. But they might say, oh, you know what? Closing out the projects, it happens once every project. I have a few steps I do to do it. It's not that big a deal. And really at the end of that, we don't really even really care too much about that. It's really the management of the resources and the scheduling of the original tasks that are the big challenges. And right there, I learned a bunch of stuff, right? I learned, oh, this thing that I'm thinking there might be a reason to solve a problem there around closing out a project. For this person anyway, maybe not that much of a problem. Now, I might ask a little bit more, a few more questions about, to really validate that that's true. But I also just may say, well, if I've heard that from multiple customers, I may just say, well, you know what, there's no solution. There's no problem here that needs to be solved. Now, I do want to hear that from multiple customers in either way. So what are your biggest challenges with X? Not how are you handling X, as I put in the slide there. So what you want to do is if you find out that, yeah, that the problem that you're looking at is important to them, like, again, if I got that first answer that says, yeah, closing out the project is a big pain, I'm not very successful with it, it takes me a lot of time, I'm not able to show good outputs to my executive team, and so they really are wondering what I'm doing, and I also think we're missing out on some of the learnings that we'd like to do from our project team at the project closeout, and et cetera, right? So they're actually saying, oh, this is great. They're saying, yes, we have a problem in the area that you're asking me questions about. So then you want to find out, well, what are they doing about this problem? So how are you addressing closing out your projects today? And they're going to give you some answers, and some of those answers may be things that you can, in your brain, you're going to say, oh, I can create a solution to that. You don't say that yet. You also say, have you tried different solutions? Have you tried to build something? Have you tried to buy something? And do you think there's some good solutions out there? And if so, why aren't you using them? Or have you evaluated them? And then you can also ask, if they don't think there's good solutions, you can say, well, what would make a good solution, right? So those are all these kinds of questions. You're still staying, though, really in the problem space. The problem at this point is the problem of finding a solution to this problem. But you want to find both of those things, right? You want to find out whether this is a big problem, if they're doing anything about it. One of the reasons you want to find out if they've done things like looked for a solution is because that indicates that they might be willing to buy a solution, right? Because if they're not doing any work or putting any resources into solving this problem, then it may be that this problem is not worth money to them to solve. And if it's not worth money to them, then it might not be worth money to you to solve it, right? Because we're always trying to find out how to create products and solutions that will cause people to give us money because they provide a really important and high value solution. So if we find out that that particular thing is not one of the client's biggest challenges or prospects or customers, then we can do a little bit more drilling down on that just to validate, right? Does it ever come up? And you can find out based on what their answers, whether you might want to drill further. If they say no, it never comes up, then it's probably not worth asking about. They might say, oh, usually that's somebody else who has to handle that. And then, of course, what do you do in that case? Well, you go talk to that other person and find out if it's in one of their top challenges. you're probably talking to the wrong person at that point. Or, you might also just find out that they should have put it on their list of important things in the first place, right? If you got that answer, you asked the question, what are your most important challenges right now, sort of your top 3, and they didn't say it, and then you ask about it, they may say, well, you know what, it's not top 3, maybe it's top 4. Or they might say, it really is one of the top 3. I sort of wasn't thinking about that because of some stuff that's been going on this week. But yeah, I'd say that's really important. So there's some ways to get into that as well. Now, even if they don't tell you that your domain, the thing you want to solve, is one of their top challenges, you do want to make a note of what their top challenges are, because those are possibly going to be other opportunities for you to create solutions, right? Maybe you should focus on one of them, but maybe you'll also hear other snippets of information from other informants that help you flesh out those things into a big unsolved problem that you can create a solution for and make some money. Wouldn't that be great? So that is, I got to my backup slide. That means I'm at the end. So anyway, that is just some stuff on, going out and finding market problems and how to take those steps. I love the parts about the questions. You can tell that the question stuff is like super motivating to me. The making the appointments, not super motivating to me, and I always need help, or I need to force myself, unfortunately. But once I get on the phone, as I said, it works out great. But hopefully that's not your challenge. You might have other challenges. But I think the asking question stuff is the most interesting, right? Trying to drill into the problems, find out what the real problems are, and then try to get enough of a signal from multiple people that you can create a solution that no one has thought about before. And that's really where, it's one of the ways companies get really successful, is they create a solution to a problem that really wasn't obvious from the outset. There's 2 ways to make lots of money on the internet. There's a great phrase by Ev Williams, one of the founders of Twitter. There's 2 ways. There's the easiest way to make $1 billion on the internet is to find something that everybody has always done and make it faster or better by using the internet, like gossiping. Twitter is an answer to that. Facebook also, gossiping, of course, is a long time area where humans have always wanted to do it, and they continue to do it, and there's always new tools for that. Music is another one, right? Music has driven hundreds of thousands of innovations throughout history and many, many businesses. And so, that's just creating better ways to do music, whether that means being able to carry it around with you, or being able to have all your songs in one space, or even being able to transport music via printed sheet music, which was a huge innovation at the time that happened. And there was a huge businesses created around sheet music. That was long before people could record music and carry them around, and that became a big business. Anyway, the point is, find things that people do. But the other thing is, that's a lot of, in particular, how you create successful consumer products. But successful business products often are about gaps between existing solutions that you can fill, and things that don't appear to be problems until you start to analyze the impact of them. And then you can often find ways to create solutions in those little spaces that are pretty powerful. Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. Hope this was interesting, and I did have some hiccups there at the beginning when I was on the wrong channel and stuff like that. But I think this is a pretty fascinating topic, and we'll talk more about it in the future, I'm sure. But anyway, that's it for today's live video. I hope you enjoyed it. A few things. If you like the video, please click like. You can subscribe to the channel. I do more than just live videos. I do a live video every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. It usually goes around a half an hour, a little longer, as it did tonight, because I just get so excited about what I'm talking about. And I alternate between stuff that I've been writing about or questions that people ask me, and talking about those. And as this live video program grows, which I hope it does, and people start to attend in bigger numbers, we might even have some interactive conversations within the video, where somebody types in a question and I answer it live. That'd be fun. Anyway, like, subscribe. Oh, and I also put up other videos often, and I also have a blog where I put up articles, and I have a podcast, which I'll put all the links into the show notes for that. Anyway, that's it for today, and I hope that you enjoyed that. Let's see if I might actually have a slide that has all that stuff on it. Do I? No, I do not. So that's too bad. But anyway, I need to get a little bit more businesslike on my thing here and actually have a slide that says please subscribe. I don't have that. Anyway, that's it for today. I will talk to you all next week. Have a good week, and let me know if you have any questions that I can answer on these live videos. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.